So
Wow.
I would challenge, the status quo, and that's something that XP is doing, is to really think about things differently and really think about more that 95.5% of your population, right? Don't hold back the 95% and curb, the ability to modernize because of that 5%. Often HR folks or consultants that I've spoken to, will say, well, Craig, we're not hearing a lot of noise, right? It's not, we don't feel like it's broken. So if it's not broken, we don't need to bring a fix in. And, back to my examples with, Uber and Amazon, like they weren't really broken either, right? But we sure found out pretty quickly there was a better way to do it.
Welcome to the Founders Clinic, where we talk to founders and the C-level using innovation to build a better future. Stay tuned for inspiring stories, real challenges, smart wins, and practical insights. We hope this clinic helps you grow, heal, and thrive on your own journey. Welcome everyone to your favorite clinic, the Founders Clinic. Today, I have a really special guest, Craig Selander, who is the VP of National Accounts of XP Health, a company that is modernizing vision, care, and insurance. Craig, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Leonardo, great to be here. Really excited about the next however many minutes to discuss what the market means at XP Health and how we're changing the landscape.
That's amazing. I really appreciate your time. Let's start with the basics. Who do you serve? How do you serve them?
Yeah, real simple. We've got a very large marketplace out there. Nearly 50% of people are using some type of corrective lenses or frames, right? And then on top of that, you got the other 50%, so a total marketplace of 100% that are using sunglasses. And that's why XP has really come to light, is to serve that broad population.
That's amazing. And how do you serve them? What are the different products and offers that you offer to people in need of those glasses?
Yeah, think of it as XP delivering a marketplace, right? Really the starting point of just the whole buying experience, and where that buying experience has changed and really evolved over the last 10 to 15 years with the advancements of technology. XP saw a tremendous opportunity to really serve that in a little bit different form, which I hope we can get into greater detail through the call.
That's amazing. I think it's a good opener for all our listeners to stay tuned until the end of the episode. But I always like to connect with the people that is behind the great company. So please tell us a little bit about your background and how it connects with the challenges that XP Health is trying to solve in the vision and care industry.
Yeah, thanks, Leonardo. So 20 years in the employee benefits space, right? So think of that as just all managed care, working for some of the largest, influential organizations such as the Blue Crosses, United Healthcares of the world, and then spent a stint at IBM Watson Health, really diving into the analytics side of the arena as that has evolved, and then stepped into, what's transformed over the last few years is the virtual arena, right? And the explosion, as I was with Omada Health, serving the chronic condition arena of prediabetes, diabetes, hypertension, and musculoskeletal. And that's propelled me to pioneer this new landscape at XP Health that, quite frankly, is modernizing the way that vision care is being delivered, both from a materials perspective and an eye care perspective. We like to call it eyewear and eye care. So pretty exciting times. Again, really pioneering and blazing new paths within that arena.
Wow, that's a lot of experience and a lot of experience connected with innovation, which I believe it's at the end of the day what XP is trying to put for the world, like innovation to change a landscape that, as you have mentioned, has not changed before and that truly focuses on the client and on serving that client. Can you tell us a little bit more about those differential and that innovative technologies that XP Health has and that makes it different?
Yeah, glad to do that. So just to take one step back, when you start to think about the managed care arena for a second, right? And you start thinking about large employer groups, what's always paramount to them or most important to them is, one, what is going to be my members' experience at the end of the day, right? And are we bringing a valuable program that's a benefit to the members? One, from a retention standpoint, how are they going to keep top talent, recruit top talent, et cetera? And then, the second is, how do we do this in the most manageable way from a cost perspective, right? So bringing those two folds into light is really at the core of, why benefits for employees was founded, many, many moons ago. So XP has stepped into this light to say, one, as we evaluated the market, and the vision market hasn't changed in 30 years, right? 30 plus years. Very traditional in nature, not a lot of enhancements over that period of time. And XP saw a tremendous opportunity to come in and do what I just shared, is one, change the experience for the member, allow them to shop and take advantage of the technology that's available to them. Artificial intelligence has now entered the arena in the healthcare space, so we're capitalizing on that in different ways as well. So we're augmenting what that member experience is. And then, as I mentioned also, from a cost perspective, right? So how are we delivering a lower total cost of care, which often, Leonardo, vision is just not at that forefront, right? It's often not in the conversation. But when you start to think about what members are dealing with from a cost perspective, or a family of three, they might be spending up to $1,500 for their eyewear on an annual basis. So if we can be that sidecar to care, right, and that total cost of care, and alleviate some of that burden as medical costs and dental costs and disability, et cetera, are continually increasing, and we can bring that sidecar in and actually reduce some of that cost for that employer and that employee, that seems like a very much a winning value proposition.
I love those type of value propositions because I'm a believer that those are the ones that are made for incredible things, right? When you are able to balance how to impact and how to innovate and how to make people's lives better, while also managing, okay, how can we do this in a profitable way? Because at the end of the day, we are also a business. And when you are able to merge that purpose with profit, I think that's where real magic happens. And probably it's what's happening with XP Health now. So that's Absolutely. Incredible now that you mention it.
Absolutely. And I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up, that the buyer has changed as well, Leonardo, as you think about that, right? So the consumer, how they're consuming healthcare and what their expectations are, that bar has tremendously been raised over the last how many years as well, due to the nature of how they buy other items. Whether it's shopping for a car, whether it's buying clothing, or just normal goods through Amazon, people generally are looking for what that experience entails. And healthcare generally has also been a little bit of a lagger in that arena. So XP has brought that to the next level in terms of how that member buys, where the experience is very personalized. And then the ease of the experience, one, being able to shop online, have your glasses ordered, it's delivered right to your home, very simplistic, experience. And then on top of it, as I mentioned, just the cost, right? If they can do it at a more affordable way, in a more convenient way, if I can get an eye exam, online versus having to spend 2 hours out of my day driving to an appointment, scheduling an appointment, as you can imagine, what do you think that consumer is going to choose, right? They're going to choose the path that's more an easier path for them, much more convenient path for them as well.
I hear you 100%, and I believe that, especially in today's world, that customer journey is more important than ever, right? And fixating really on that customer journey. And I see a lot of founders, unfortunately, focusing too much only on the product or only on what they believe will have the biggest impact. But at the end of the day, if you do not have that holistic view and that whole customer journey into view, and that product is a part of it, but then you have the customer experience, but then you have the cost side, and it's a lot of different engines that have to work, then it's different to truly have that impact, or at least maximize that impact and profit. And that's something that I really like about XP Health, and is that comprehensive 360-degree view of everything, that holistic part.
Yeah, just like I kicked off the conversation, it's a health care and an eye care, right? It's eye care and eyewear, right? Really, when you start to think about that in that capacity, that's where we're modernizing how how eyewear is delivered. And if the past way of thinking of just putting eyeglasses or contacts on people's faces is the answer, that it's really in my opinion, that's a pretty short-sighted position, just to the nature of the holistic and interoperability of where the market and eye care can be delivered. Right. As I mentioned, 50% of people are dealing with some type of corrective lenses. This is an everyday occurrence for a lot of people. And if we can make that a more streamlined, cost-effective, and enhanced delivery of care, it seems to me like that's really a winning formula, and why I'm really excited to be a part of, our journey at XP Health.
It's definitely a winning formula. And you have mentioned a couple of things that are very interesting, right? When thinking on how to build magic, as I mentioned before. So one is identifying a pain point in the market. So something that really, there is a gap. The second one is identifying a market that has not evolved in the last 30 years. The third thing is having this 360 or holistic approach, right? And the fourth thing is always mixing purpose and profit, because at the end, again, it also comes down to the cost. So there are a lot of learnings there. But my question is, when you look back, is there any one key decision, wacky move, anything that make a big difference in the success so far?
Yeah, I would say, one thing that we really had to take a step back on is, when you're dealing with employer benefits, often it can be very challenging to get an organization to modernize, right? There's always concern for the outliers of, well, we might have some people that don't like what we're doing, or, there might be a little network disruption, and that's where, if you start to take even a further step back, maybe why the evolution of healthcare has moved, traditional medical insurance has moved at such a snail's pace, right? But costs are incrementally increasing at, an 8 or 9% trend on an annual basis, which is pretty scary to think about. So I would challenge, the status quo, and that's something that XP is doing, is to really think about things differently and really think about more that 95.5% of your population, right? 95% of your people are going to benefit from a program like XP. Right? It's going to be more simplistic. It's going to be, more cost effective. It's going to be more personalized, right? And for that very small percentage, that call it 5%, maybe that doesn't like change, right? Don't hold back the 95% and curb, the ability to modernize because of that 5%. Bring the 5% into today's world, regardless of whatever that is, right? And that's the transformation that we live in, and that's the evolution of transformation as well. You could take that back to examples like with Uber. Right? Uber, like, who would have ever thought for a second you'd be getting in someone's car and ordering up a Uber until you actually did it for the first time? And quite frankly, most people are probably never going back to a taxi, right? The same thing with, the experience at Amazon. Like, there was nothing broken with the Target experience, but until you actually, started to shop at Amazon and you had lower cost, packages showed up right at your door. Wow, that was just like an overwhelming positive experience. And that, again, that's the same story that XP is delivering.
100%. And, at the end of the day, I believe that innovation comes with disruption, and disruption means change, and change can be overwhelming, and change can come with fear. But when you have a vision and you're able to push through that, then the world changes, right? Your examples on Uber, the world is different now, but it was only possible because they managed to push through all that noise, because it's not easy. And I feel that that's something that XP is doing as well. There is a vision, there is a clear benefit. There will always be noise when you are innovating, but if you push through, you will create that Uber. You will continue into the path of making the world a bit better for humanity at the end of the day. So that's incredible now that you mention it.
Absolutely. And Leonardo, if I was just to add, one thing when you start to think about, employer groups on the benefits side, often HR folks or consultants that I've spoken to, will say, well, Craig, we're not hearing a lot of noise, right? It's not, we don't feel like it's broken. So if it's not broken, we don't need to bring a fix in. And, back to my examples with, Uber and Amazon, like, they weren't really broken either, right? But we sure found out pretty quickly there was a better way to do it, and the market obviously has responded very favorably to that. So I always try to raise that question, to the market, my HR directors and benefits directors and consultants and brokers, to really think about things just in a little different light, that even though it might not seem broken, until you modernize, you may find out, and the consumer and their members may find out, there's absolutely a better path. And that's a story that we love. We love sharing with many of our testimonials at XP that felt that same way. Then they've gone through the experience, that they've received the cost savings, and it's just overall been a delight with with our NPS scores compared to where the market's at today.
I like that a lot, and I have spoken with many founders and everyone and have incredible enterprises, but this is the first time that I hear. So I will do echo to what you just mentioned, and it's something doesn't have to be broken in order to find a better way. That is the key question. Is there a better way? It's not, is this broken and only fix and solve for things that are broken, but to actually ask, is there a better way? And if there is a better way, then why not to pursue it? And that's also how innovation comes. So I really like what you just mentioned. I really like what you just mentioned. And coming into the present, what's something recent that you or the team are proud of? A win, a milestone, a strength that feels uniquely yours?
Yeah, I would just say, just really highlighting the overall transformation, right? And making sure at the end of the day that member is getting the experience that they set out to get. Again, change is not easy. We're evolving as the market is evolving in a very rapid pace. And, what comes along with that is, tremendous satisfaction. When you go into a market that hasn't had disruption in 30 years, it's really powerful and very rewarding to see, putting that member, right, that end consumer at the center of the delivery, right? And if you can change that and do it in a cost-effective way, that's a very rewarding, value prop, again, to deliver to the market, but also very rewarding to the folks at XP that have, set out on this journey.
Yeah, that's absolutely critical to keep the customer at the center, and then every other pieces will fall within that. Craig, there is something that I always mention here at the Founders Clinic, and it's, since this is a clinic, we can't skip the pain points. And every company that is innovating has a few. What's one challenge you are navigating right now and that others might relate to?
Yeah, I mean, as an innovator in the space, it's awareness, right? And, I think you'd probably agree, but people are pretty reluctant to change. Coming back to my example of, if it's not broken, we don't need to fix it. But in that landscape of healthcare, like I mentioned, Leonardo, I try to use the example of like a sidecar, right? So if an employer is constantly saying, hey, costs are going up on our medical plan, what type of sidecar could you bring in from an awareness perspective to try to bring some positive energy, when benefits are potentially changing or costs are going up in other arenas, which we know, what that trend has done across that spectrum. So I would say, again, just really being open-minded to change, which is never an easy thing. But the first adopters, those are the folks that are going to reap the greatest rewards. And as you know, that paradigm of, early adopters, and then you have your second adopter wave, then you've got your late adopters. I would just encourage those folks that maybe have had that mentality of wait and see to maybe dip their toe in the water, right? And really go on and take a little bit of a chance, on an innovation, regardless if it's XP or any other innovation. Do your homework, do your due diligence, but take that chance and really, look to bring some modernization into the employee benefits and the managed care arena.
Yeah, I believe that when you take that chance, the benefits that you can get are just tremendous. And then if you foresee it, the risk was very low at the end of the day. And, I was, my main background is management consulting. I was 10 years in one of the world's leaders in management consulting. And it really resonated with me what you mentioned about change management. It's hard to the point that we were doing before. Like, we had a couple of projects, 3 months, 4 months, only focusing on change management. And I believe that it's in part what you mentioned, sometimes if it's not broken, then why? But the answer is because there is a better way. So I will live with that again, doing the echo to what you mentioned, because it really resonated with me. Looking forward, where do you see XP Health heading in the next 12 months? What's the vision right now?
Yeah, we're going to continue to do what we're doing, right? And that's disrupt the market, and bring that innovation. I see a tremendous opportunity to expand into additional partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
I see the potential to expand and bring more interoperability to the comorbidities that exist within, eye disease or eye deterioration. And those conditions are very prevalent in the U.S. population, right? Diabetes, prediabetes, hypertension, everything that's associated with that cardiovascular and what can impact deterioration of eyes. I think there's a tremendous opportunity about exploring how that interoperability can come into play to get in front of more members and also deliver an enhanced experience with supporting those members that are living with those chronic conditions, and where the eyewear comes into play as well.
I love that it's the holistic among something that it's already holistic. So that's an incredible vision. And what's the biggest strength that you are leveraging right now to achieve that vision?
Yeah, I would just say the expertise in, within our teams around our technology and using that cutting edge technology and experience to really build, right? At the end of the day, we're an organization that's building, and we're using, the combination of human elements and, tech, right? That's where the market is going, regardless of whatever industry you're in, is how do you capitalize and advance? And that's exactly what XP is doing, and something that we do very well.
That's incredible, and I believe it's a very important strength to have in order to achieve that vision. Craig, let's wrap up with a few rapid-fire questions. Let's keep it short, sharp, and tactical. One book or resource that you recommend to any founder?
Oh boy, that's a good one. Blue Oceans is probably the one that comes to mind for me. I love Blue Oceans because it's really what we're doing right at XP. We're looking at it saying, Blue Ocean, how are we creating differentiation?
That's incredible. I love when companies go on try to find or discover a blue ocean, or starting something from ground versus just fishing where everyone else is. That's incredible. And a trend that you are genuinely excited about right now?
As far as a trend, I would say is just the overall, I would take it down to, how do we reduce trend, right? How are we assisting in lowering that total cost of care? That's a trend, in my mind, that speaks to a lot of people that might be listening to this call. And that's something that, again, I think is having that holistic view and all the verticals of managed care that historically just hasn't, vision maybe hasn't fallen in that bucket. So how do we support them in their trend and really reducing that total cost of care on that member trend?
That's a good one. And what's one piece of technology or AI tool that you cannot live without right now?
Well, I would say our face scanning technology, right? So imagine using our face scanning technology that measures the 450 data points. It actually looks at your pupillary distance and makes a recommendation of eyewear. Again, just cutting edge. So I'll stay on the theme of what XP is delivering in the market, but really, really cool technology that really utilizes the science to make recommendations of eyeglasses for our members at XP.
I'm even excited for that technology. You have to tell me when you come back down here to Colombia, because I really want to try that one.
I would love it, Leonardo. I think you'd be great. Maybe a teardrop eyeglasses or some round glasses. The technology will tell you exactly what is the best fit for your facial dimensions.
Wow, that's amazing. We will for sure be waiting for you here down in Colombia, in South of America. What's one thing that you wish you knew earlier in your journey?
Oh, one thing I wish I knew my journey is, what does the future hold, right? How big can XP get in modernizing this, this vision landscape, and and how exciting that journey is going to be. I wish I could look at 5 years from now to see what that growth is going to actually be, and I had a little crystal ball into what that future entails.
That's amazing. And the final one, something you are grateful for at the moment.
Yeah, I'm grateful for a lot of things, but one, we've always taken great pride in something that I've always taken within my industry. Right, we touch a lot of people in the products and programs that we deliver, and I'm grateful for those partners that have always trusted me, right? They've trusted me. They've trusted my brand as I've brought a lot of innovation that have impacted, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of lives in my 20 years in the business. And I would say, just grateful for today's time, as well, right? As a new entry into the market, it's really important that platforms like what you've established here just really assists, in bringing awareness to something that perhaps is perceived as not broken, but can be enhanced. So those are just a few things that, I'm grateful for.
That's incredible, and thank you for saying that, and we are very grateful for you to be here as well. Craig, what's the best way for our listeners to connect with you or to follow the work at XP Health?
Yeah, I'd love the opportunity to go just a little bit deeper with any of your listeners out there today. The easiest way to do that is either go to xphealth.com and you can check out the website, or you can reach me directly if you're just interested in having a capabilities conversation or just want to learn a little bit more at Craig, CRAIG at xphealth.co. Once again, Craig at xphealth.co.
That's perfect. And we'll leave the links in the description of the podcast. So make sure to check it out and reach out to Craig and the XP Health if you want to continue the conversation. Craig, thank you so much for your time, for the insights, for the inspiration. It's incredible to see how you and XP Health are modernizing an industry that has not changed in 30 years, as you mentioned it. So thank you for the time and for the inspiration.
Fantastic. Well, we're thrilled to continue the journey. And again, to all the listeners, feel free to reach out and learn a little bit more about us.
That's incredible. And to all our listeners, see you in the next episode of the Founders Clinic.